Do I really have to make this video? Oh, the sugar diet is all the rage now. People are claiming they're losing weight, getting ripped bodies, and diabetics even say they don't need as much insulin anymore. On the other side, you've got the keto people who say the same thing. So what's going on? Are both okay? Can you do anything you want now? Well, before you jump up and down excitedly saying, yay, I can finally eat the foods I love, and yay, fruit juice is health food again, let me break it down for you and inject a dose of reality into the room, starting with context. Sugar is fuel, okay? It's a really simple fuel. It's the universal fuel source for anything alive, including, may I remind you, bacteria, viruses, yeast, mold, fungus, parasites, and of course the big C. Oh yeah, people forget about that part. So, do you have SIBO, where your gut is bloated all the time from bacteria overgrowth in the large intestine? Good luck with that. Dang. People promoting a high sugar or high carb diet like fruitarians or even some bodybuilders using white rice, fruit, and honey are cutting fat extremely low, which lowers overall calorie density. Why are they not getting fat? Because they are very active. They ride bikes, they go to the gym, they swing through the trees in the jungle, they swim, they walk, they run, they lift weights, they sweat a lot, and they move their bodies all day. They burn up that fuel before it has a chance to turn into fat. It's that simple. It helps even more if they eat a whole food diet. They eat whole food sugars like fruit and dates and sweet potatoes, not soda and donuts. They also have low insulin resistance to begin with. Their cells still respond well to insulin. In this context, high sugar carbs aren't making them fat because the glucose is burned immediately from all that activity and there's no dietary fat to be stored. Some diabetics report lower insulin needs on high carb, low fat foods like, McDougall or Neil Bernard's programs because insulin resistance improves when saturated fat is taken away. But this doesn't work for everyone, especially if the carbs are refined or the person is already insulin resistant, which is what most middle-aged people nowadays have. It's called metabolic syndrome. Okay, so on the other side, you've got the keto and carnivore people. Keto restricts carbs to force your body into burning fat for fuel. It's called ketosis. This lowers blood sugar levels, cuts insulin dramatically, increases satiety, and being less hungry means you eat less. You have fewer cravings and your energy stabilizes. Okay, so if both sides work, can't you just meet in the middle and do a little of both? Well, that's where things get a little tricky and people get into trouble because if you add carbs on top of fat, things can go south very fast. The worst combo is carbs and fats. A lot of people know this. This is the real danger zone. Cookies, ice cream, for example, it's nothing but sugar and fat. That's all it is. Pizza, fries, donuts, high carb, high fat. It triggers huge dopamine hits, which makes you feel good, so it's easy to overeat. It causes high blood sugar and fat storage. Carbs spike insulin, which tells your body to store nutrients. And if there's fat in the mix, it gets stored more easily, resulting in obesity and diabetes and fatty liver and all kinds of unhappiness. Okay, but is it the type of carbs or fat? Yes! Very much so. Of course, there are bad fats and sugars and ultra-processed junk. And then there are the better whole food carbs like fruits and tubers and legumes and whole grains, which are low in glycemic load when paired with fiber. Remember that thing called fiber? And there's healthy fats like olive oil and avocado. They have healthy monounsaturated fats and oils. There's healthy omega-3s in chia and flax and seafood and bad fats and refined seed oils and trans fats and on and on. Minimal processing equals better blood sugar handling. Bad fats mixed with sugar equals disaster. Okay, so what about the Asians? They eat rice, which is a carb, and they mix it with fat and other things like fish or vegetables, which is protein and fat. Good question. Glad you asked. Their meals are lower in fat than Western diets. Oh yeah. Very little processed food. High fiber, fermented foods, which means gut health. Active lifestyle, even if it's just walking a lot, which most people in this country don't do. But of course, modernization has come into Asia, and with its processed oils and pastries, and diabetes did rise dramatically in Asia, so they're not off the hook either now. But you can make low-fat, high-carb work for a while, and you can make low-carb, high-fat work. Just don't mix the worst of both worlds and expect good results. Now, it's easy to simply think combining fats and sugars are bad. No, that's not the case. It's not that simple. It's the type of fats and sugars, and two, how healthy your metabolism is. Like durian, for example. Okay, it's a big, giant fruit that grows in the tropics. It's both high in fat and sugar, but it's natural. So it's okay, right? It's high in natural sugar, fructose and glucose, and it has a lot of fat, particularly monounsaturated. It's dense and creamy and extremely high in calories. But unlike a donut, durian contains, what's that word again? Right, fiber, which blunts the sugar spike. Plus, it has micronutrients like potassium, copper, vitamin C, B vitamins, phytonutrients, antioxidants, sulfur compounds. So despite being high fat and high sugar, it's a whole food. Your body processes it differently than an engineered pastry. Now that said, if someone were sedentary and downing 3 durians a day, you could get fat. It's calorie dense and insulinogenic, so you can't binge on it every day. So before you go running back to your high-carb, low-fat ways, remember your gallbladder. Oh, yeah. Gallbladder. And remember what I told you a few months ago. Since fat triggers bile release, eating a low-fat diet means bile just sits there, turning into sludge, which ultimately hardens in the gallstones, especially in women who think eating fat makes them fat, so they avoid fat. You also need healthy fats to absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, or else you end up with deficiency. So even if you were to take vitamin D and K pills, they won't absorb if you're on a low-fat diet. This is why even most vegan doctors like McDougall and Esselstyn now recommend at least a little fat like flax and walnuts and avocado to keep the gallbladder functional. So yeah, zero-fat diets are unnatural and potentially harmful long-term, and why a natural combo is likely best. Eat whole foods and modest natural fats like nuts, seeds, avocado, coconut, and olive oil. Look at the Mediterranean diet. Olive oil, bread and beans and fish, right? Okinawan, sweet potato, tofu, and small fish. Traditional Mexican, corn, beans, squash, and avocado. Each combines fat and carbs, but not in highly refined or isolated forms. It's the quality, the balance, and the context that matter. So when you hear influencers saying sugar is good, don't jump up and down excitedly saying, "Yay, now I can eat all the foods I love." If that guy eating sugar is getting ripped, then maybe I can finally eat cookies and pancakes and lose weight too, right? Fruit juice is health food again now. I don't need to worry about insulin spikes. This type of thinking is especially bad for middle-aged women where hormones and estrogen drop, affecting insulin sensitivity, muscle retention, and fat distribution. That kind of thinking can backfire hard. Remember, those influencers are often young, lean people with high muscle mass and activity who haven't been eating a lot of processed food. This is not the norm for sedentary, perimenopausal women with hormonal shifts and often lower muscle mass. Remember, context is everything. Get your carbs from real foods like fruit, sweet potatoes, and beans. Include some healthy fat to support hormones and bile flow. Walk after meals, build muscle, don't fear lifting weights. Get enough protein to support your metabolism and your hormones to satiety. Don't mix sugar and fat in the same meal if you're trying to lose weight. Go for at least a 10-minute walk after every meal. It makes a big difference in blood sugar. Keep your meals simple. Not every meal needs 5 flavors and 3 sauces. Use sweets as a treat, not as a staple. Even fruit can be overdone if you're sedentary. Remember, carbs mess with your hormones, and if you're in perimenopause, you have less metabolic flexibility and more insulin resistance. What worked when you were 25 doesn't work when you're 45. So keep that in mind. High carb, low fat works for a while until it catches up to you and they take your gallbladder out. You need a balance. Always remember, just eat stuff you find in nature. as close to the form that you find it in nature, and don't eat stuff that comes in a packaging. It's nothing that's been ground into a flour and baked in an oven. I know the stuff that tastes good is what you want. Fruit juice is more fun than fruit, but the fruit has the fiber. That's what you need. There's that word again, fiber. Here's Marcus lecturing. Oh my God. Oh my. Anyway, I hope he gets something out of this. It's you already know most of this. I'm here to remind you. So go do it. Go do it, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. And I don't mean go do ice cream. Yay, cookies and fruit juice. Chocolate lava cake. Yeah.